The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock now, and I see people are coming on still. If you have any problems connecting, you can put something in the answer box there, and we'll get to you. I see there's a couple repeats from last week's webinar. Hopefully we won't have the technical issues like we did last week. Okay, so I think we'll start. Welcome everyone to Numeris Webinars. And my name is Jody Gabry, and I will be talking about the online radio diary. There's a few things to get out of the way, I guess, with the webinar, just to make sure that everyone gets the best experience. You should have on your screens, you'll be able to see the control panel as well as my presentation. A couple things. You can, as you sign on, you have the choice for mic and speakers or telephone. And mic and speakers, I'm sure everyone will be doing, but in case you have a problem with the internet, you get booted off, you can always choose the telephone method. You just go over and click beside it and it'll give you a Canadian number. Just so you know, though, you will get charged for it. It's not covered. Pardon me. The second thing is that you can type your questions in the question box. And I will be answering questions today. However, it is about the online radio diary, so if there's a question that's like a general methodology that doesn't have much to do with this, I won't be answering that. Although I will be sending out, or you'll get it from your AEs probably next week, a list of all the questions and all the answers from this webinar as well as last week's webinar. So I will answer your questions if I can. I'll either do it at the time it's asked if it doesn't interrupt the flow, or I will do it at the end or during the webinar. Okay, so let's get started here. What is basically going to happen today is you will become an expert on ORD. I'm going to tell you everything about online radio diary, how it's different and how it's the same from the paper diary. I'm also going to tell you what you need to do to ensure that the ORD works as well as it can, and then there'll be a live demo as well. First off, actually before I answer the burning question, what I'd like to do is give a poll. I just want to find out where you know, what part of your company that you work in, what your role is. So if you just want to click to the left-hand side and let me know. It just gives me an idea. Like I say, I can see your names, but it's nice to know also, I don't know everyone here. It's nice to know where you're from. So it looks like the bulk is from programming. Excuse me. So I'm going to close that off now, and let's just see, I'll share that with you. So as I say, like 50% is programming. Last week's webinar, we had the bulk was management. We've got a lot of agency people or advertisers in the planning buying I see there. And then we've got sales and management. Okay, that's great. Thanks everyone for sharing that. I'm going to hide that now and we'll get back to the presentation. Okay, the burning question that we've heard from a lot of you is why did it take so long to have an online option? Numeris, or BBM as it was back then, actually started this in 2004, developing it, and the reason for that was to come up with a choice for our respondents. You know, any research, what we found is anytime you can offer people a choice, it helps with participation rates. So we developed something, we tested it in 2007, but what we found is that no one chose it really, only a handful, and along with the cost it would take to change our processing systems, it was decided by our committees, our executive committees, that we wouldn't go ahead with it. So fast forward 7 years, and in 2014 more people are obviously familiar with online and there's a lot more mobile, so we brought it back. We created a whole new custom online radio diary, and we tested it extensively. What we found was, and again, we tested it with 2 markets, a French and an English, and the basic findings was there were no major differences in the overall sample distribution. There was no consistent demographic differences. Return rates were very comparable with the paper diaries, and the tuning levels and patterns were very similar across day parts, demos, and formats. So why did it take so long? Bottom line is people weren't ready for it a few years ago, and bottom line is Numeris, we test everything, right? We wanted to make sure, as I said, that there was no big changes in the tuning patterns and all that, because that's obviously what your bread and butter that you use day in and day out. Okay, so now let's go over why it was worth the wait, I guess you could say. The online diary has many advantages, and I'll talk about a few here, but you'll really see it when I do the demo. Obviously, it's an online tool, which is fantastic. It's always accessible to our respondents. They can fill it out anywhere, whatever matches their lifestyle, right? Whatever device they want to use. It's very user-friendly. Again, you'll see that in the demo. It's a more precise method of capturing tuning, and again, I'll show you that. The younger demos liked the online option. We found it increased participation of them, again, which is why we wanted to do online radio diary as well. So there's a lot of positives. And just to let you know, Numeris is actually one of the first countries worldwide to adopt an online diary. There's only a handful, and ours looks great. A lot of the other online ones, all they've done is just kind of put the paper diary online, so it's like a grid format still. And just to give you some context, in the States, Nielsen is still working on bringing an online diary into production, and they like ours so much that they have based it on our diary. So that's kind of nice to be in the lead there. Okay, I'm going to talk about, as I said, how it's different and how it's the same. So the diaries look the same, or I'm sorry, the diaries look different, but they gather the same info. So on the right there, it's a screenshot of a couple of the online diary shots. So, it's still a Monday to Sunday diary. It still captures every 15 minutes. They still have to put where they listened from and so on. As I said, one of the great things is that people can get ORD on their phones, their mobile. So again, this is a couple screenshots of what the program looks like on the telephone, the phone. And as you can see, it's really simple. It's very clear. And again, we'll go over that more when I do the demo. Now, we have a question here, and it says, does this option include Toronto and other PPM markets? This is diary data, diary markets only. So it's online radio diary just for diary markets. So no meter markets. Okay, pardon me. So small changes in methodology. As I said, one of the great things about online radio diary is that people have a choice now. However, everyone in the household has to use the same diary mode. So when Numeris contacts during enumeration and recruitment, the household contact they talk to has to make the decision if they are going to fill it out by paper or online. What we found in the 2 tests is that between 30 and 40% of households opted to participate online. So another change is that they have unique passwords and usernames. So currently the paper diary, people are sent, the household is sent a diary that has, every person is sent a diary. I'm looking at the questions here. Everyone is sent a diary with their name on it. What happens in the online radio diary is everyone is sent an instruction pamphlet, and they have a unique username and password for each individual. Plus there's contact information about who they can contact for questions. Now, the incentive rate is the exact same whether they pick paper or online. It's $2 per person in a household. And if it's in a 55 plus only household, it's 0 incentive. We don't need it. They send their diaries back. And for 18 to 34-year-olds in that household, everyone gets $5 as an incentive. And that's just one of the practices that Numeris has put into place over the years to try and increase the participation rates and the return rates for that diary. Now, I'm seeing that there's quite a few questions here about meter information, and I'm not going to answer that now. What I'm going to do is I will answer that in the Q&A that I send next week. Now, there's another question saying if someone fills in the diary, is it specific to the minute or round to the nearest quarter hour? It's exactly like our paper diary is. It's in 15-minute increments, so we ask people to put down the station they listen to the most in that 15-minute period. Okay? Another change in the online radio diary is there's more touch points with participants, which is really great. Anytime we can interact more with the respondents, that can help increase participation rate. We've seen that with the meters, right? So everyone, whether it's paper or online, gets 2 calls at the beginning of the survey and at the end of the survey to encourage them to send in their diaries. What happens with online is because we have their email address, they can be contacted up to 4 additional times. So in the very beginning when we recruit, the household contact is sent a list of the unique usernames and a URL to the study. When everyone, each person individually first signs in to the online radio diary, they get a confirmation message saying, you know, thanks for signing in, confirming their password and that. And they have an option to change their password as well. As well, what's great about the online diary is our system can tell if there has been no tuning input. So after the first few days, so after the, I think it's about the 4th day, if there's no tuning that's been filled in, we will send a reminder by email saying, hey, you know, see if there's a problem, you know, reminding them they can call us if they have it. As well, at the end, if they haven't submitted their diary about 3 or 4 days after the end of their survey week, we can send another reminder. So all that's really great in helping to, you know, get people returning the diaries, because if they don't return them, obviously we can't put them in the sample. Another question here, just quickly about the incentives. The 55 plus households, they get $0 incentive. That was just put in last year. So I will put that in the answers, but if you have more questions about that, you can talk to your account executive. Okay, so the next thing is the next change, I guess, and one of the biggest ones is that with the online diary, and again, you'll see that when I do the demo, there is less chance of tuning confusion. So by tuning confusion, I mean in the, people might put the call letters for a station, and then they'll put maybe the, you know, tagline or on-air slogan, or possibly the frequency, and they might not match. So what we do, our conversion department it's called, when we get the diaries, they will look at our background information and try and match it up, you know, and always they're trying to match it first to a local station, right? If they can't do that, then they will phone the respondent and try and figure out what they meant. Now, sometimes they can't get a hold of the respondent, or sometimes the respondent can't remember and it can't be clarified. So sometimes we have to, I guess, throw away diaries. We cannot use them because the tuning data, there's confusion in it. So what the online radio diary does is, as I said there, if they put something in like the call letter, it's already matched kind of behind the scenes, and it'll pop up what the frequency is or the on-air slogan. And again, you'll see that in the demo. But what that means then is that we might possibly have more usable diaries. We won't have to throw anything out. Not anything, we shouldn't have to throw too many out. And this means more samples. Now, that's probably confusing. It's not like we're throwing out, you know, tons of diaries. It might be 1 or 2 or 3 that we can't match the tuning to. So with the online radio diary with less tuning confusion, maybe we end up with 1 or 2 extra diaries that we can use. Of course, this is great. You know, the smaller the market, the smaller the demo. 1 or 2 diaries means more sample, and that's always good. Okay, now I talked about what you would do to impact the, I guess, the quality of the online radio diary. And the first point is aimed at stations. Now we have something called the Client Forms website, and as you know, you have someone at your station who is responsible for going in there and filling in, you know, making sure that the on-air slogans, the taglines, the frequency, the call letters, that they're all up to date and nothing's changed. So that becomes really important now with the online radio diary, because every night the ORD syncs with ClientForm's website. And again, that's going to help with the tuning and alleviate, or help make the tuning clearer and make sure that the tuning is attributed to the right station. So it's very important that who's ever filling in your ClientForm website, that they update the information immediately. The second point is for everyone, all members, and that is to understand that any change in methodology can have an impact on audience numbers. This is just a research caveat, right? We saw it especially when we went from a diary market to a meter market, right? And so the idea is keep this in mind when you're looking at the fall 2016 diary results, both on a market level and a station level, okay? Now we're going to help you with that. Numeris, our research department, is doing a full analysis comparing the fall 16 diary to last year's fall diary. So they're going to be looking at a tuning analysis, and they will be doing this for every market, every diary market, and they'll also be letting you know what the percentage of the online radio diary participation was and the diary return rates. So look for this, and I encourage you all to read it, because you'll get a bottom line of how your market or your might have been impacted by ORD. And just a caveat, obviously we can't you can't ever pinpoint if your audience, any changes in audience that went up or down and say, oh, it's because of ORD. It could be listener habits changed, or there was a bad storm one week during the survey and it impacted it, right? But what it will do is give you some, like I say, a baseline and some idea of how ORD could have possibly impacted your market, and then trickles down to your stations. So this will be made available, but it'll probably only come out about a few days before the survey, because the last week that we get back our diaries, we only have so long to process it and all that. So look for that. You'll be getting an email, and like I say, I encourage you to read it. And if you have any questions on that afterwards, of course, your member services executive is always there to help you with that. Okay, and now for the big reveal. So we're going to be doing the demo right now. So I'm just going to switch over to that. Okay. So when someone, as I said, when they first sign in, they will have to fill in their first name, last name, their username, their password, and also their postal code. And I will explain why that's important later. So let's pretend that I've already signed in, and now I'm going to sign in and update, the current day's tuning. So this is a screen that'll come up when they log in, and as I said, you saw a screenshot of it on the phone. It's very clear. So just a little bit about the main stuff here. It'll pop up their last name and their first name, and if it's not them, they'll click on that, and then they can go back to that screen we just saw. Obviously, our diaries are all in English and in French, so they can easily, with the paper diary, we have to find out the language at enumeration and send it to them, the proper language. This way, it's the same URL, and they can just switch back and forth between French and English. We have an FAQ, which has a list of, a lot of questions that they might have answered or have questions about in terms of filling out the diary. They can click on that, or there is a search function as well. Down below, there is a privacy policy, of course. I always have that. Contact. They can contact us by telephone or by email. And if they've lost their password or something, they have to phone in, and we will ask them, some pertinent questions to make sure that it's the person who's supposed to be filling in the diary is calling in and getting the password changed, okay? Comments. This is just like the paper diaries. We encourage them to put any kind of comments they have about specific stations, radio in general, that kind of thing, and that's something that, stations can come in and look at. So they can type in this box here, press save, gives them a little message, and it's saved. So again, you can change your password as well if they want to online. But let's go back to the main screen. This is what will pop up, and this is where kind of the guts of the system happens, right? So as I said before, the diary informations look the same, but the information is the same. So the About You is the demographic information. You know, your marital status, your age, your sex, how many people live in the household, and so on. You just fill this in. You just fill this in, and it'll automatically save it, okay? So if we go back, and then this part here, more about you, this is the qualitative and the services and the products, right? So, you know, again, where did you shop? How often did you shop? Again, you just click less, or sorry, click more when you want to continue. And again, it saves this automatically. Now, it's just like the paper diary, and we encourage people to fill this stuff out, but as many of you know, sometimes, people aren't filling out everything. So it looks like I'm saying I have a webinar has frozen. Is it okay now? Okay. Let me know if you can't see it still. Okay, let's go back now to the best part, of course, the most important part is the radio listening. So as you can see, it shows that my week is October 10th to 16th, which is currently this week. And as you know, we do 8 weeks of measurement for the diary, and we have different sample every week. So my week is this. So I go in, and I want to fill out tuning. Now the first thing you're going to see is that some of the dates are blue and some are gray. So the blue are dates that have already happened. So today it's October 13th, or in the past. Grayed out are ones that haven't happened yet in my week. So there's no way that they can fill that in. So they can't pre-fill it in, which is, great, because some people want to pre-fill in because they say, well, I always listen to this half an hour here, then I listen to, 3 hours here, and I always listen to the Friday night dance program. But what we've found, especially, with meter in the meter markets, is people think that their listening is very static throughout the week, but lots of things can impact it. Maybe they leave work early, or there's construction on their commute, so their commute's longer, so their tuning goes up. So this is just one way to try and make sure we get people to fill it in kind of as it happens. So let's go in now. Let's pick Thursday. I'm going to delete these. Ignore this, okay? So what you get is a screen like this, and it says, did not listen all day, or add your listening. So we're going to click Add Listening. And this is what pops up. Again, a very simple screen. You saw it on the mobile phone. It shows up great. So first thing we ask them to do is, okay, when did I listen? So I want to put in that I listened to a show this morning on the radio while I was getting ready. So it was at 6 a.m. So you just use the buttons up and down, right? Then I'm going to go to what time did I stop listening. So it automatically goes to that 15-minute period ahead of time. And I'm going to say I listened to it till 6:30, okay? Now I've just got a question here. It says, can you pre-fill for a later time during today's date? No, I can't. If I tried to put in like 9 o'clock tonight, because it hasn't happened, it'll say you cannot fill it in, okay? So the next part here, let's go back to this. So now what station did I listen to? So remember I mentioned that people have to put in their postal code. What the system does is it will pull up a list of stations based on what I put in, and it'll pull up your local market first. So, if I put in that I listen to Jack FM or Virgin, these are in different cities. And if I punch that in, it'll pull up the one that relates to my postal code. So it'll pull up the closest one. Now, having said that, this is a test database, okay? So it's based on the postal code of the Toronto office, and it doesn't have all the stations in there, all right? So don't get concerned about what stations pop up, because some of them are really quite weird, and like I say, it's not pulling up all the stations, okay? But as you know, just know that when the people have it, it'll pull it up themselves. So this is Toronto, as I said. So I'm going to fill in. Now there's lots of different ways that I can fill this in. Let's say I put search for all Toronto stations. I just type it in, and what happens is I get a list of Toronto stations, okay? So I can just click on one and choose that. I'm not going to now. I want to show you all the different ways. Let's say I'm actually looking, oh, it's my news station I listen to. Can't really remember what it's called, or I just punch in news. Again, it'll pull up the news talk stations, starting with the one closest in my my city, matching to my postal code. There'll be a list down, okay? Now, I should mention that the list here is member and non-member stations, okay? We keep track of non-member stations as well, because that all goes into an overall, the tuning number, right, for overall reach in the data. So with your reach number, you get all these stations included. Obviously, the non-member stations, we do not show these non-member stations, okay? So I've got a question here, and it says, is it searching by the word news, or is it by the format? You know what, it does by both. Anything they put in there, so let's put hot AC. So these are going to be hot AC stations, hot FM. So yes, it'll do it by format, because you have that as well on the Client Forms website. Basically, anything that's in the Client Form website, people can search on in here, okay? There's another question here, is how do respondents know they're restricted to 15-minute periods? That's something that's talked about when we recruit and in the instructions that are sent and all that. So that is covered off with them. Okay, so we can punch in by the city, we can punch in by a word, news, which could be their format or on our common ID, or let's say I'm really gung-ho and I know what my frequency is. Again, you see CFRB pops up, and the other stations pop up that have 1010 in it as well, okay? Or I'm a real keener and I actually know what the call letters are. So I'm going to click that now. And then the last thing I have to do is put where I'm listening. Now let's say that I was in a hurry and I didn't notice that. I click save. They have to save every tuning entry, okay? Which is, you know, a way to make sure that what they put in there is what they wanted. So what happens now, it shows up as red. So I know there's a problem with that. So then I'll put update, and it'll show the red section here. So I'm going to say I listened at home. I'm going to press save, and there it is, it pops up. So now there's a couple questions here. It says, in your test, do people fill out online in real time, or do they fill in at the end of the day? You know what? I'm not sure if that was tested. I'm not sure if we could tell that. And also I'll try and get an answer on that, but just so you know, with the test, because it was only 2 markets, it's not everyone, we released the results to our executive committees only, because we try and do it to get an idea of some changes, but obviously it's not, what's the word I want to say? Just because it happened in the 2 markets that we chose, it doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily happen in your market, right? So, and another question is, can a person fill out listening from 2 days ago? Yes, they can. They can fill out anything from the time that they're at, their local time, back. Okay. Now, there was another question asking about measure out-of-market stations in Toronto. So again, as I mentioned, any questions that have to do with diary spill or tuning into meter markets, I'm going to talk about that. I will answer that in the Q&A that comes in a document after, okay? And just looking at another question here. I think I've got them all there. Okay, so now let's say I want to go back and just check my listening. Let's say I realize, you know what, I don't think I filled in Wednesday. So let's go to Wednesday. There's nothing there. So then I remember, you know what, oh, I did not listen all day. So that's great because I didn't. Say I remember Monday and I go, okay, you know what, I usually always listen to CFRB. Looks like I have a favorite here. CFRB in the car, and for 45 minutes is my commute, but I just remembered, you know what, I was actually in the car for an hour because there was construction on the road. So I'm going to update that. You just click the update. I'm going to go over and change the time. 8 o'clock. I save, and it comes back in there. Or let's say I realized, you know what, I didn't even commute that day, so they can delete. As I say, all you can do is just delete. Ask them if they're sure they want to delete. And there you go. And if they wanted to add back in, they just have to do add listener. Okay, so as you can see, it's really simple to use. There's a lot of questions I can see that have come up around how the station listens to. So I want to show you one other one because, like I said, we measure member and non-member. We want people, think about it, our respondents, they have no idea what a member station is, what a non-member station is, right? They just are asked to, anything they listen to, please fill it in. So I'm going to say, let's say I got to work and my workmate wanted me to listen to this internet station, Radio Spain. They loved it, they raved, they want me to listen to it. So let's say I listened to it at work. I listened for 10 minutes, but again, it fills in the 15. So I listened from 9 a.m. to 9:10. It goes in for 15 minutes. So I'm going to punch in Radio Spain. Okay, it comes up in there because I already put it in there before. So then home, I can save it. Now let's say it was actually Radio Italy. Okay, so let's go add listening. So I'm going to go back in. I listened to it. Let's say I listened to it at 9 again. This time, you know what, I really loved it. I listened to it till 10 o'clock. Okay, again, you just use the arrows to go up and down. It's really simple to change. So I listened to Radio Italy. Now, you see that comes up and it says add new station, Radio Italy. What happens is that it's not in our list. So it's a member station that we haven't got in our list. And as I said, you know, we don't have all the internet stations and it's impossible now. So what I can do is, let's say I listened to this and I loved it. So I obviously want to keep it in there. So I add it. This screen comes up and now I need to put information in there. Okay, so it's an internet station. So I just put internet in and I press save. So now what will happen is if when I come back to work maybe and I want to listen to it again, or let's say Saturday night at home I want to listen to it, if I go in there, it is on my station list. Okay, so people can actually make their own station list. So there was a question about 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. time slots. They're excluded. Exactly. We only capture tuning from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. So if I went in here, let me just go back to PM. Sorry. You can't get anything in there. Okay. So I'm going to close out of that. Another question is, so I'm going to say save changes. Yes. Another question. Now, okay, what happens? See here, if I did something wrong, because I put 9 a.m. to 1 a.m., it says this conflicts. It also, remember I put in that I listened to Radio Spain from 9 a.m. to 9:15. So this is telling me that I just put in an entry for Radio Italy and it conflicts. So we press close and now I have to change this if it's going to let me change. So then I go, oh, you know what? It wasn't 9 o'clock I listened to it. It was actually, 10 o'clock. Go into 11 o'clock. Oops. As you can see, it's just easy to use arrows. So I listened to it, let's say I listened to other, I ended up listening to it at my friend's house, I'm going to press save. And then it's in there. So there's that nice fail-safe there if they can't put double tuning in, okay? Just looking at the questions. HD. So yes, some stations have HD feeds now. So again, anything that's in your CFW, like I say, they got hot or news or, you know, HD. If it's in your CFW profile, your Client Forms website profile, then it'll show up in the station list. So with HD, of course, we are capturing HD, and if it's simulcast HD with your mother or your home station, whatever you want to call it, that tuning will go into overall radio listening. We are not separating out HD. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that right now. Again, you know, as the person says, it's a big question, so that's something that your account exec or your member services executive can help you with, okay? So that's it on the demo. Are there any other questions for that? I'm going to just slip back to the presentation. Okay. So that's it for the presentation, but what I'd like to say is there's going to be a short survey that pops up as soon as you close out, and there's only 4 questions. So we want to be doing more of these webinars, so we'd love to hear your feedback. We want to make sure that it's as good an experience as possible. And there's a comment section, so please put in things that you'd like to appear in a future webinar or educational materials, okay? We'll also be sending out, as I kind of mentioned, next week, going to be sending out a recording of this. So you can listen to it again, or you can fast forward and watch the demo, share it with someone in your company. There'll be the Q&As. As I said, I'll have a list of the questions that were asked here that I didn't get to, but all of them, plus the questions asked last week with the answers. And there's an FAQ that we created as well. So that's something for you, like a resource reference material you can use internally or use it with your clients in that, okay? So I'd really encourage you to fill out the survey. And it looks like we have one question, is does it appear the same on a phone as a PC? And we did have a screenshot on the PC earlier, so I will make sure I include that screenshot with the Q&A, okay? And so basically just thanks for your time and your input. And remember, if you have any questions, you can call your member services executive. You can also email at webinars@numeris.ca. And if you haven't signed up for access to our member-only site, talk to your member services executive. This is where future recordings for future webinars will be put. It's also where we have educational materials, which you know, is great as refreshers for people who've been around a while or for new people. There's a lot of information there. So again, I just want to say thanks, and I encourage you, as I say, to fill out the questionnaire. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.